Hi everyone, my name is Gideon and very welcome to this week's episode of City Ripple. I have gained the same amount of weight in the last year than I have in the preceding 15 years after finishing high school, which is startling if you think about it. I mean, it startled me into deciding to do a whole series on it and put it onto YouTube. Anyway, why do I think it's important? There's obviously the physical appearance aspect of it. I don't necessarily like carrying this bit around, but that should take, that's part of the problem, is that we'll only think about that. And I'm going to park it and make it a very distant second to the much more important issue of health. Gaining that much weight in such a short period of time is mostly due to visceral fat that sits around your waist, and you can probably see it on screen. That's a spillover from fat that's accumulated around your organs and sits within your abdominal cavity. That's completely different from the subcutaneous fat that sits under your skin and just keeps you warm, which is actually good for you. Scientists call this visceral fat metabolically active, and I think this is the key bit to understand, and this is where it clicked for me. We often think of fat as just this white, puffy, soft, tissuey stuff that sits all around our body, and we kind of want to get rid of it because it makes us look bad in a swimsuit once a year when we go on holiday. But that's not what visceral fat is. Visceral fat, as I said, it's metabolically active, so it has certain signals that it sends out to your endocrine system around hormone release and control of different chemicals in your body. And like any other organ, if it enlarges and it swells to a much larger size than it should be, it amplifies these messages that it sends out to your endocrine system, and that cocks up the chemical balances and the hormonal balances in your body, and that is what leads to diabetes and heart attacks and cancer and all these other awful diseases that we often battle with. Once that clicked in my head, I was like, I need to get rid of the shit, and I need to do it quickly. So the good news is that there are ways to do that, and I'd like to talk to you about 3 different diets that you can consider, all more or less around the same principles of carbohydrate restriction, and then I'll finish up with how I suggest you can approach picking one. Now, if you think of the diets that were around in the 80s and 90s, they were all low fat, no fat, zero fat, absolutely no fat, as if fat was this devil's child that just made everyone sick and made everyone fat. And I guess it's an easy connection to make, isn't it? It's like, you eat fat, you get fat, but that's not true. That's not true at all. The latest research shows that the real culprit of health, it seems that is the high amount of carbohydrates that we take in. The carbohydrates has effects on your blood sugar. It keeps on spiking around meals because of the carbs that you eat, and that is what causes a lot of these illnesses, it seems. Again, our bodies are complex. We don't understand everything, but that is what the current research is pointing towards. The first one is called, I'm just going to mention it, there's enough written about it online, and I'll put a link down in the notes for you as well. It's called the slow carb diet, which was made famous by Timothy Ferriss. He's an American writer and he's prolific on the internet. You might have heard of him. And that diet pretty much gives you guidelines on how to pick different types of carbs, which is measured on what is called the glycemic index, which is just a measure of your blood sugar level response to certain carbs. So you want low glycemic foods, glycemic indexed foods, as opposed to high glycemic indexed foods. But I'll put a link to it, you can read through it. Then the diet that I want to talk about quite a bit is called the low carb diet, or some people also call it banting. Now, I came across it because it's been written by 3 South Africans, and it took South Africa by storm a couple of years ago. The book is called The Real Meal Revolution, and one of the real brains behind it is Professor Tim Noakes, who is extremely well respected scientist both in South Africa and internationally, especially for the work that he's done on running and nutrition. Now, he's just an overall nice guy. You can see interviews with him. Absolute old school professor. I love watching him talk. I really think he's amazing. But one of the things, and I think this is why I respect him the most, is he had for years he held a certain view on carbo loading for running, for long distance runners. And then as his research progressed through the decades that he was doing it, he realized that carbohydrates is actually really detrimental to your health. And he did a complete 180 on his opinion. Now, the public always gets, or some people always get really uptight about that. Scientists doing 180s and science changing. It's the wrong way to look at it. I think one should respect a world-renowned scientist that put his hand up and says, well, actually, we all had it wrong all these decades. Have we considered this and this and that, and then steer the whole conversation into a new direction? It's extremely brave. I think it's something to take your hat off for and not criticizing on. Anyway, back to the book. The book itself, the first 50 or so pages just gives you a very easy and accessible explanation of what banting is, and then the rest of the book is extremely well put together recipe book with low carb recipes. So I can give you a couple of examples. Parmesan chicken pieces with roasted garlic, tomato, lamb blanquette, rosemary salted sirloin with avo butter. It just sounds delicious just reading through it. I read it from cover to cover just to prepare for the series. And then it finishes up with a bit more beefy scientific research that went into it. Really good, really easy to follow, and at the heart of it, it has 3 lists: a green, a orange, and a red list. It tells you can eat anything from the green list, be careful on the orange list, and nothing from the red list. No calorie counting. It's extremely easy to follow. And then the third diet is called the Ketogenic diet, which is the one that I'll be following for the next 12 weeks. Which is pretty much the low carb diet taken to a bit more of an extreme, in that you restrict carbohydrates even lower. So a bit more technical, takes a bit more planning, but I'm really excited to try it. And I'll do a whole episode on the ketogenic diet and how I pick my foods and my approach to it. That will be the next episode. So I think as an approach, if you are considering a diet to follow for fat loss, first of all, I think it's important to mention you don't have to exercise to lose fat. You see people in the gym, like really overweight people. It's fucking cruel to tell people that are overweight, awkward around about their bodies. I think it borders on cruelty to tell them that they have to exercise really hard to get rid of that fat. You should exercise because you enjoy it and to become stronger, but mainly to enjoy it, not to try and lose fat. That can be done 95% with just the correct diet. So if you want to lose weight, I think what I would do is read through the documents that I'm putting down on each one. I'll put them in the notes, and then one of these will jump out at you more than the others. All 3 of them work really well. It's just a case of personal preference and what you think you'll what you gravitate towards more naturally. If you want a suggestion on, if you don't want to do that and you want just a suggestion on which one to do, I would pick the second one, which is the low carb or Banting, which this book is enough. They've got a really good website as well. You can follow with all the lists on there. Just the fact that it breaks it down into lists, and it's written in kind of a humorous way in some ways as well. They don't take themselves stupidly seriously, as is always the risk, and very accessible. So I'd start there, and then if you want to go further, you can follow that up with a ketogenic diet, because the principles are very similar. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'll be doing, as I said, the next episode will go into detail of the ketogenic diet. If you like it, please subscribe at the bottom. I always finish by saying you should send it around to friends that you think might be interested, but you might want to be careful sending a whole episode on fat loss to your friends. You might want to caption that really nicely when you send it around. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.